Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Pleased to be joining you again. Thanks again to Gary Dolphin and Pat Angerer for joining us last week, talking some Hawkeye football. Going to get back to talking some Hawkeye basketball here this week, as we had Kent McCausland, former Hawkeye sharpshooting great, a couple of weeks ago. Well, Kent brought company this week with him, J.R. Koch, father of Cooper Koch, but also a former great Hawkeye player in his own right. J.R. drafted in the NBA draft in the second round and played a great international career. So we'll talk to JR about everything Hawkeye basketball, and Kent as well. But also next week, we've got Peyton Sanford and Bryce Sanford joining us. So going to have them on again as we did last February. Going to get a little pulse from Peyton on what it was like to try out in the NBA camps and then being back at Iowa now for his last year. And Bryce, of course, going into his second year and talking about Cooper Koch and all the new arrivals. And then in following weeks, we'll have Adam Haluska putting his cap on last season for the Hawkeyes and going into this season. So much to discuss as we get rolling for Hawkeye football. First of all, Kent, thanks for joining us. And JR, thank you for the first time and joining us. Kent's joined me throughout the years. It's a pleasure to meet you, and thanks for joining us. How you doing, JR?
We're doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Truly my pleasure, our pleasure. But JR, before we get into talking about your memories of playing for the Hawkeyes and now your son Cooper, a prized recruit, a legacy recruit as they call it now, since you played at Iowa from 95 to 99. But Kent was there a year before you as a redshirt. And of course, we're going to talk about you guys being part of the last team for Hawkeye men's basketball. It's been 25 years, 1999, to make it beyond or into the Sweet 16 and beyond. So unfortunately, we got to talk about that. But Kent and I have talked about what Fran's been doing for the program, and hopefully your son and the rest of the crew can change that, JR. But Kent, what was it like showing JR on his campus visit? You were a real worldly freshman going into your sophomore year, and JR, a young recruit. What was it like?
I don't know. I wonder what JR was thinking. He comes onto campus and they're like, great, I got the slow white red shirt as my host. This is awesome. I wonder if he thought, do they want me or do they not want me? And so, no, we had a great time. And I like to think that I showed him around downtown in a nice fashion. We didn't get too out of control. I do remember that my good friend Russ Millard was able to get us into any establishment that we wanted to get into very easily, even though we were only 19 years old or 18 years old, and we had a good time. They're not as glamorous as you think, and Jared would probably be like, "You're telling me," because I think we sat at a Burger King for most of the night, chatting with a girl or two, but it was not like we were out all night and having some crazy time, but we did have a good time. We kind of bonded, and I said, hey, if you come here, we'll get an apartment. You don't have to stay in the dorms. You can stay with me and Bowen. We'll get a 3-person place, and he took me up on it. So I was like, well, I guess we got to do that now, because I told him we'd do it. So I think we were excited about the opportunity because he was extremely talented, and he fit in with what we were doing and could get up and down the floor. So from a basketball perspective, it was a no-brainer, but as a guy, it was even better. So very, very good. That was my memory. So now we'll have to ask JR what his memory was.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Go ahead, JR.
So Jess Settles was also kind of a co-host on this, and I think it was Jess's junior year, and we ended up actually finishing the same time. So go figure. So there's that. But yes, Ken kind of touched on it. He hosted me on the visit, and we had a great time. We hung out, and I think me not going to the dorms was just as much of let's put JR with these very vanilla dudes and keep him out of trouble. And it worked. It was a great time.
JR, let's talk about your high school career. You're from the Peoria area, and of course we know about your son Cooper. You went back there after you graduated, working in the real estate world now at Jim Maloof Realtor, and you were telling me off air quite a distinction you have in Central Illinois and southward. Please talk about the company a little bit, if you would, please.
Well, I've worked with Jim Maloof for 18 years. Kind of acted as one of the vice presidents there for about 7, 8 years. And kind of got out of that to kind of focus more on the selling again, but very proud to be part of the company. We're one of the largest companies south of I-80. You take out Chicago. So for a long time, I believe we were the second largest, but I haven't checked the stats this past year. So, but it's very successful. We've got several offices around Central Illinois, and it's just a great company to work with.
Love it. The competitive fire. Still want to be in sales and realty. And Ken, of course, doing very well in the financial services industry, as we see his background with PDCM Insurance and company his dad Max started years ago. So it's great to see the competitive fire still burn for you. So JR, let's talk about your life going from Peoria into Iowa City. What was the decision making besides that illustrative visit with Kent McCausland and Jess Settles and the rest of the crew to get you on campus, and Ryan Bowen, who we're going to have join you guys at some point upcoming here when Ryan's off a world vacation with his family, of course, an executive with the Denver Nuggets coming off winning a world title last year. All three of you guys and Jess Settles, that whole team, very successful post-playing career. Talk about going from Illinois over into Iowa. What was that like for you, JR?
You know, it was, I was kind of recruited by both programs, you know, Wisconsin, pretty much all the Big Ten programs, a lot like Cooper was, but I just felt very comfortable at Iowa. I felt comfortable with the coaching staff. My high school team would always do team camps at Illinois. And there were some players in years before me that went and played at Illinois. So that was kind of our destination for team camp. And I was close to some Peoria guys, Peoria Manual guys that were over there playing at the time. And they were kind of expressing, kind of without saying it, but they were kind of expressing some change potentially coming there with the coaching staff, and Lou Henson potentially being out. So I didn't want to be in any part of that. I love Coach Davis and kind of the style, the get up and down, the press. I knew I wanted to play as much as I could as a freshman, and his, you know, deeper rotation kind of fit me, and it just was a great fit basketball wise. And then coming over and meeting guys like Kent and the rest of the guys, Bowen and Jess and the rest of the guys, we just all hit it off and, you know, had a great time.
Yeah, and when you talk about Dr. Tom, to me, as you mentioned, being a player's coach like that with that type of game that he played, and for you, I got to believe Dr. Tom has that real, if not fatherly, grandfatherly approach as well. Now, he could get after you guys a little bit if you weren't getting after it yourself on the floor, as you chuckle. But I got to believe playing for Dr. Tom was a complete different world than some of the other coaches that had recruited you.
Yeah, he was he had a knack for pulling you aside during practice and, you know, kind of asking how things were going, how life was going, but also, you know, talking about kind of some goals and what he wants to see out of you on the court. And, but he all brought it back to, you know, hey, I'm here to help you, whatever you can. The university's here to help you. And it was just, you know, I still see him today at the golf outings or wherever. And it's like we haven't missed a beat. We talk about family. I get a card from him, you know, 2 or 3 times every year. And he's just the best. You know, I just hold him in such high regard.
Kent, let's go back to you. When you talk about playing for Dr. Tom.
Dr. Tom, you know, he's a terrific mentor, and other than my parents, probably the people that have the most effect on my life and just how I even go about my life today with my family.
We'll be back with more Hawkeye with Kent McCausland and J.R. Koch, 2 former Hawkeye Iowa basketball greats. Back with more in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There's our buddy J.R. Koch and Kent McCausland, 2 former Hawkeye basketball playing greats, joining us for the whole show today. And first segment, if you missed it, go back and watch it, DaveO'HaraSports.com, if you missed it on statewide television. So, JR, we were talking going into break about Dr. Tom leaving the program at the same time as you, Kent, Jess Settles, you know, Ryan Bowen was gone a year before you guys. But we talked about that whole group. But, you know, more I want to get into with you. We talked about off there, and let's bring it on here. I want to get more into not so much after that game when you lost to UConn, the end of your college career and Kent's and Jess Settles, but that leading into that year, there was something monumental that happened that a lot of us aren't aware of. And I was out in working in California at the time, so I wasn't aware this happened. But talk to us about the beginning part of that season, if you would, please, JR.
Yeah, so Ken and I have kind of discussed it a little bit and kind of how it brought the team, but kind of the story, or kind of how I remember it, is we were having a team meeting about in September, and you know, we're on campus working out. We've been there about I don't know, a month or so, and kind of gearing up for practice on October 15th. And it was already announced, or shortly before that, it was announced that Coach Davis wasn't going to be returning. And so we're having our team meeting. We're talking about stuff, I don't remember the specifics about the meeting, but in the back of the kind of the classroom that we were in, the office, Mr. Bowlesby walked in, and I remember him kind of whispering to somebody, and Ken and I were kind of in the front. We kind of turned around and we're like, well, what the heck's he here for? And TD kind of stepped aside, and Mr. Bowlesby came up and kind of started speaking. He said, fellas, team, let me know if there's anybody you would be interested in being the next coach at Iowa next year. And Kent and I kind of looked at each other, and I was taken back by it. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
We're here talking about this year and talking about being the best we can be this year. And we're not talking about next year and some other coach. This is my coach, and I didn't like how you're handling it. And so Kent we were one of the captains at the time, and Kent kind of stands up and says, hey, no offense, Mr. Bowlesby, but I think you need to leave. We're here talking about this year's team. And to me, going into the season, that was kind of our rally cry. It brought us together. It's solidified. We were a unit, and we just enjoyed each other and enjoyed our time with Coach and just getting better. And it was just one of those moments that I'll never forget. And it was really special. And I think you got the exclusive, because I've never said that on air or on anything else.
Well, I really appreciate that, JR, and thank you for that. And Kent, I'll bring you in now to JR's.
I felt like I had to say something so the young guys knew, hey, the seniors got this. You worry about us and our team, and we'll worry about that other stuff later. And that became kind of our thought too. I think all the coaches were like, you know what, we're all in. We don't have to recruit. We don't have to go on the road. We'll be here at night. We'll be here in the morning. We'll be here ready to coach you guys hard. And that really became exactly what it was. It was like this cocoon of about 25 guys, managers, coaches, players, and we were all in and tried to have the best season we could. And I have to even remind people, like, we got smoked by Michigan State. We got smoked by Wisconsin. It's not like we were out there world beaters, but we just never quit, and found a way to keep just kind of plugging away and getting better. And by the end of the year, we were a pretty good basketball team. And it was just a really fun year, even though when we had some losses, we had like 10 losses or something like that. So it's not like we were unbelievable, but we were just gritty, and we just tried to find a way to win every time. And so I think that maybe just kind of set the tone a little bit for that year. And I'm obviously proud to do it, but it just felt like it was just I was like, well, we got to say something. Like, we can't just sit here and do it like this. So
yeah. Amen to that. I want to talk about Hayden Fry, because what a cool connection, as Hayden's getting ready to leave the University of Iowa too. He takes the time to instruct properly about you guys and your Hokey Pokey with the basketball team. Lay that on us, please, JR.
We beat KU. We're in the smallest locker room imaginable. It's like 115 degrees in this locker room. And I think it was Jess Settles, who says, let's do the Hokey Pokey. And the next thing you know, we're doing the Hokey Pokey, and this circle is so small because the locker room's so small. And some video was in there, and obviously we're butchering it. So we go to practice, I don't know, the next day or the day after that, and Hayden shows up to show us how to properly do it. So we got a proper instruction from Coach Fry himself, and it was pretty special. It was cool. It was just one of those moments as a Hawk you'll always remember. And and again, that was just that group, that senior group. We had some special moments together, some special kind of memories, and that brought us together, that made us kind of have some grit and have some heart, and we just didn't give up. And we were down in some of those tournament games, and we just kind of found a way. And so it was pretty special.
I shake my head, Kent, when you mention Jess Settles and Hayden Fry. You know something good's going to happen, right, Kent?
Well, I mean, Hayden Fry had the most respect for Dr. Tom. Those two really liked each other. And I think we're kind of those old school teacher coaches, right? Like that's how they grew up. If I'm not going to coach at a big university, I'm going to go teach some high school team how to play basketball or play football. They don't care. And so I think they just had a good mutual respect. And, you watch the film of that
that Kansas locker room, like half the guys they don't even know what they're doing, but they're laughing and they're jumping around, and Guy Rucker's giggling. We always make fun of Guy Rucker. Like, it just, it's none of them knew anything. And so I think Hayden was like, this is pretty pitiful. Like, I better go to the practice. So, he comes over, and I still remember, it's so vivid. He's walking down the tunnel, and he's got this maroon jacket on. I'm just kind of like, why is Hayden Fry at our practice right now? And so he comes in, and I remember I went in for the handshake because I was like, it's Hayden Fry. I went in for the handshake. Well, he comes in for the big hug because it's Hayden Fry, and he doesn't care. He just loved our group because we stood up for our coach. And I think that's just what he would have wanted. That's what he expects from his team. And so I think he came over and taught us the Hokey Pokey, and to see it, that man like put his hand like on his head and like do the twirl around. You're just like, oh my God, this is like, this is the grittiest man I know, and he's teaching us the Hokey Pokey, and that was pretty cool. And so we did it better from then on out.
Another layer off the onion of the legend of Hayden Fry. That is awesome. So for Kent McCausland and J.R. Koch, two former Hawkeye basketball playing greats, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. We'll be back with more in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. J.R. Koch and Kent McCausland, kind enough to join us for the whole show. Two former Hawkeye basketball playing greats. J.R., of course, Cooper Koch's dad. So a legacy recruit, going to be starting his career for the University of Iowa Hawkeyes this season. So J.R., your son at Newton, what was it like for you as a parent? You're a legacy recruit. Cooper, everybody in the world was after Cooper, your son, to join their basketball team, specifically in the Big Ten. I know you said you wanted to leave it up to Cooper, but you had to have something. You had to throw a little marker in there for your Hawkeyes, didn't you? How'd that play out?
Not really. Early in the process, well, let me kind of rewind. So Cooper, I used to ask Kent this question. Cooper got an offer really early in the process. I mean, he was kind of like a Dean Oliver, Ricky Davis kind of timeline. It was after his 8th grade basketball season, and he had just come over for basketball camp, and I think he wiped everybody up. He played awesome. And so I came over with my wife to pick Cooper up from the dorms, and Coach Fran's like, hey, he's great. And Fran recruited me when he was at Notre Dame. So I have a lot of history with Fran, and I took 2 visits, Iowa and Notre Dame. So Fran was a big part, and I trusted Fran, and I was here when he, at Iowa, when he accepted the job and kind of was announced and all that stuff. So he offered Cooper really early, and he said, hey, come over to basketball practice. But I never really knew what to take. Like, I'm like, is he really offering him, or is he just trying to motivate him? And I reached out to Kent, I don't know, a couple times, didn't I? And I was like, is this real? Like, is this really real? And, he would, I don't know what you would do if you talked to Spiro or whoever, but he would come back and say, it's real. So we never told anybody for probably a year and a half. And then he got an offer from Bradley. And I was like, okay, well, I feel comfortable telling other people that he got an offer from Iowa, about a year and a half ago. So I told his AU coach, and his AU coach was like, why didn't you tell me, And so Fran's just, he sees talent. He kind of can assess it, and he doesn't care. He knows our family, and Cooper, that was always in the back of his mind. Then he started getting recruited by other Big Ten schools, and once that kind of started, I kind of stayed out of it. Granted, we had always been at basketball games. We'd always been at practices, and I'd always kind of had him around the program. To be honest, it wasn't to have him go or be here. It was just because I wanted to have him around the program that I grew up and I love. And but I wanted to have him experience other programs. So we went to, football games and basketball practices at other schools, Purdue and Wisconsin and Illinois. We did it all. I wanted to expose him to as much, but when he didn't like the recruiting process. So initially it was maybe fun, but once the coaches started calling and he was getting, 30, 40 calls that first kind of couple weeks of when they could call, I could see that he was losing interest. He didn't care anymore. He's like, I just want to hoop. And there was something going on over in Iowa. It was Coach Spiraw's kind of retirement party. And we were in our kitchen at the time, and he just kind of was like, I'm done. And I was like, what do you mean you're done? And he's like, I'm done. I want to go to Iowa. And we'd had some conversations about offense and different things, and he just felt comfortable, and he likes to play fast. He likes to shoot the three, and Iowa's system kind of fits him to a T, but you know, he had to kind of realize some of those things, and he did some research on his own, and he would, you know, hey dad, do you know that Wisconsin, they have this many possessions, less than Iowa per game, and you know, so he's a smart kid, and he understands the game very well. So he knew what he wanted, and once he made that decision, he felt comfortable with it. I wasn't going to hold him back, because that meant that I get to go home too.
You're part of the last team in '99 to go to the Sweet 16 and beyond for a Hawkeye team. And of course, we know Tom Davis was run with those late '80s teams that went beyond the Sweet 16. But talk a little bit about that Cooper's even mentioned that to you. And I find that fascinating, his appreciation for history for Hawkeye basketball.
Well, I think that he knows that I'm a little annoyed, well, proud and annoyed. It's kind of this weird mixed feeling.
Yeah.
But you know, that we were the last group, and I think he's kind of said, well, we'll get back there, Dad, you know, so I'll make sure we get back there. So that's pretty cool. You know, just knowing how they go about it, they work, and, you know, he's got his dreams, and, you know, I hope it does come true, because it's a pretty special time.
I love it that Coop mentioned when him compare the games to father-son, your game to his, and he mentioned you're a little bit bigger, you're more of a post player, he's more that hybrid wing that they talk about these days, although he'll be playing inside too, and talked about his range of motion on the floor and his shooting range compared to yours. And I just thought he didn't lay it on you too thick, but he definitely likes his game over yours, just putting it out there.
Oh yeah. I could go there too, but I won't. You know, he's my kid, so, you know, whatever. But no, he's gonna have a good career. I can promise you this, he's gonna be one of the hardest working guys, if not the hardest working guy out there. He cares, and he's going to do things the right way. He's going to play the right way, and it'll be fun to just kind of see him running up and down. You know, just watching kind of some of the highlights from media day. It's still very surreal, and it's special.
Well, nobody more excited, or I guess equally as excited as Cooper's dad, you, JR, your running mate and buddy, Kent McCausland, and former teammate. Kent said to me 2 weeks ago, and Kent, I'll bring you back into this, how excited you are for Cooper, but also for this basketball team. But you and your buddy JR get to go to games together now again.
It's gonna be pretty fun, and I'll get on Cooper for you, JR. Like if Coop wants to get posted up and get an elbow in his face, then JR will give it to him. And I'm, you know, give me a break, Coop. Get a couple pounds. But
Thank you, Kenny.
See, that's even better yet. There you go.
better.
Even better yet, your guy taking up for you. You didn't have to do it yourself, JR. Thank you, Kent. We needed
Yeah,
that.
you bet. Well, and you know, I've known Coop since he was born, so I mean, it's just so exciting to watch this all happen, and road trips. Like I'm still like, okay, what road trips can I go on and sneak in with the family tickets and not be thrown up in the nosebleeds and you know, all the good stuff. I just want to go watch these guys play, and they just seem to have. I would agree with JR. Like just on the surface, you just watch them, and it looks like they have a really good chemistry about them. And that's just, you got to have it, because that's how you want each other to do well. You don't really care where the points come from. You just want everybody to do well and to win games. And I think, you know, this team may have that, and it's built over time, and it's built in practice. And I just love to hear that from JR already, and from what you hear out of Iowa City. So that's positive. And we know there's some talent there. So that's really exciting. And Coop can flat shoot the ball. So that's going to be fun to watch too. I hope he has an opportunity to get out there and has the confidence, because that's tough as a freshman. You just don't know until you get out there and get after it. And so I have confidence in him, but we'll see when the lights go on. We'll see what happens, but we're excited to watch him.
What are your expectations, Dad? I don't want you to say too much, but are you like Kent? You're just going to kind of wait and see what happens, or do you and Cooper have some expectations? Have you talked about that?
He's got expectations of himself, and he expects to be in the mix. But you know, that's where he's got to prove those coaches, prove to his teammates, and and go earn that minute. And so it'll be fun. I think he'll be in the mix. He's not always going to be the fastest, the most athletic, but he finds ways to make winning plays, to do things. And he's done that at every single level, and he's always been successful. So I don't expect this to be any different. And talking to Coach McCaffrey recently, he says that he's doing awesome.
For Kent McCausland and J.R. Koch, two former Hawkeye basketball playing greats. And of course, J.R., the father of Cooper Koch, current Hawkeye men's basketball player. For all the aforementioned folks, and to our buddy Greg Kajewski, my production partner, and to you, the viewers, that's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.